on another channel. Not very reliable. So obviously, this system didn't work as well as the online system is today. So how does it work today? You put an ad online, whether it's an AdWord, a banner, Xbox, email, whatever it is. You can track every single interaction, every single click with the banner, with whatever demand generation vehicle you're using. And you can optimize almost in real time, even in real time, based on what people are doing on those banners, on those emails, or whatever you're using. And so by using the data, you can make those informed decisions and actually see what people are clicking on your banners and what they're doing. Oh, so we wanted to kind of take a sample case and kind of walk you through what we would do for a client like our friend Bob here. I don't know, we kind of thought he looked like Nick Lachey or somebody. We didn't know. Just found him on the web. And so Bob, Bob doesn't really exist, by the way. He's just made up. He owns a 3-person graphic design shop, and he's got a website, and it's got the portfolio. And what Bob really wants, the economy's really tough. He'd like to get more clients. And so we need to put web analytics on his site so we can help him get more clients. So we're going to walk through kind of how we take Bob through the system. And so the first thing we have to do is, which analytics provider is best for my business? And so there's some big players out there. Omniture. If Bob's got $30,000 to implement Omniture plus dedicated analysts, you probably want to go with Omniture. If Bob is like most companies and has a really limited budget and likes the word free, you can use Google Analytics. And there's also Core Metrics is another player as well. They're kind of in the mid-range there. I believe, I don't know how much they cost, but I'm assuming it's between $30,000 and free. Mid-level, you've got some other players like Web Trends, which was kind of a primary player a couple years ago. I don't know if they're still kind of fallen off the map a little bit. And then Yahoo does some analytics as well. And then specialty ones, a lot of people really like Unica. I haven't really used it myself. The one that we really like is Clicktail. Clicktail allows you to kind of take videos of your users while they're on your site. It's kind of stalking-ish a little bit, I think. So you can actually get a video playback of where they were clicking. That skips over the boring parts, too. But I know we talked about usability in the past, but it's a good way to see how people are actually using your site and where they came in from. And all these actually, Clicktail and all these others, they have a cost associated with them. They're not free. I believe you can do some trials that are free.
So for Bob's business, our hypothetical Bob, we decided to go with Google Analytics because he's running a 3-man shop, so he doesn't have a lot of money to spend, and Google Analytics is the right price. It's free, but it's powerful. It's going to give Bob that visibility into who's coming to his site and what they're doing once they get there. It's easy to implement. We're going to talk about that, just a few lines of code that Bob has to put on all of his pages, and he's good to go. Like I said, getting to know your visitors. What are they doing on your site? And then it's available to everybody. You know, a lot of web analytics packages are either in beta or they're by invitation only. You can go out to Google right now and get started in 15 minutes.
Oh, so how does Bob get Google Analytics? He goes to google.com/analytics, and we'll have all of these links to the providers and Google Analytics at the end of the presentation. So we'll provide that to you. So how does he get the code? He goes to Google Analytics, he signs up, he says, I want to track bobsgraphicshop.com or whatever it is, and Google Analytics will generate a code just like this. It'll give you some numbers here if you're counting numbers. Don't actually put XXXXX because it won't work. But you obviously want to take the code that they provide. We just X'd it out. And so this is it, literally, that's it. And if you've got a large site, what you can do is, and I'm not a developer, so I hope I'm using the right terminology, you can use what's called an include file, and they can just call a JavaScript where this lives, instead of having to put it on every single page if you've got a large site. And what's good about that is you just change, if they ever update any of the code or you want to change any of your code, you can change it in one place instead of having to change it on every page. And we recommend that they want it right before the body tag. You want it to load as soon as possible. That way, if somebody decides to get to your page and, for example, it's taking too long to load after this loads, you can get that information of, like, somebody stayed on my site 0 seconds. You know, maybe I have a load issue. And this is such a small piece of code, you should not have any kind of issues with it, taking a long time to load just this piece of the code. So is the code working? That's the big question. about Google Analytics, what happens is the reporting, it's not instantaneous. You know, it's a free product. The Omniture, being 30,000, gives you kind of a real-time look at it. It gives you a 7-second delay in your numbers. Since Google Analytics is free, you've usually got about a 6 to 7 hour delay before the reports start working. So, well, the way we look at it, there's a tracking code status in the dashboard of Google Analytics. You can see up here it says, hey, I'm receiving data. It'll go and look at that home page and make sure you're receiving data. You can also use a free tool called WASP, which we just love. Right down there you can see it. That's a WASP Firefox add-on. It does not work in Microsoft Internet Explorer. But what it can do, it'll show you what analytics programs are on this page. For example, if you want to have ClickTail and Google Analytics, if you want to have 40 different analytics programs, it'll show you each one of those that are on the page right there. And then you can also use Firebug. It's also a Firefox add-on. It'll show you as the page loads what calls are being made, and you can see the Google Analytics call being made. That's probably my least favorite because you get pretty dirty into the actual loading of the site. So I'd use Firefox and the Google Analytics tracking code status first. Oh, and then obviously, if you have data in your reports, it's working, and if you have no data, it's not working. Yeah, thank you.
So now that you've implemented the code, Bob knows that it's working, he's getting numbers. What does he do? So once he goes to Google Analytics, where does he go from there? How does he use that data to make good decisions? So Myles and I are going to walk through some of what we feel are the most beneficial reports if you're starting out with analytics. And I went right past it. Back. Okay, great. So the first is the Visitors Overview Report. It just gives you those key metrics: the number of visits, the number of visitors, how long they're spending time on your site. Kind of hard to see here since it's blurry, a little snowy. Bob had over 37,000 visits to his site. That's great. That means that many times people have gone out to his site. But what's even more impressive are the unique visitors. So he has over 25,000 different sets of eyes that see his site in this given time frame. So, you know, it would be nice if he had 37,000. If he only had one unique visitor, that means his mom's gone out there and looked at it 37,000 times. This way he knows it's over 25,000 people are out there looking at his portfolio and the work that his company does. Another interesting thing that we noted here were average time spent on the site, 5 minutes. So people aren't just coming to the site, looking at a couple of pages and leaving. They're actually digging into the content, looking at the portfolio, and getting the information that they need.
One other thing that we like to look at too is what's called a bounce rate. Just to define a bounce rate real quick, that's what's called a one-click visit. They came to your homepage and they left. You want to avoid that as much as possible, unless you've got some kind of external conversion. You're sending them somewhere else, like an affiliate marketing thing. But usually you'd like to keep people on your site. You want to keep that bounce rate as low as possible. One of the things we look at, one of the other metrics we look at too, is the average page views. How many pages are visitors seeing each visit? Bob gets 5 page views per visit. That's really good. We want to keep that number as high as possible. And one thing to note too, if you are like me and you browse a site and then you go outside and run around and do your errands and come back and leave it on, leave the computer on all day, it'll cut off the visit by default at 30 minutes of inactivity. So you don't get those visits that last 4 days that kind of mess up your average time on site. No activity for 30 minutes, it cuts you off and ends your visit at that point. And you can adjust that too if you want to make that higher or lower. That'll be in the 2010 ISO 9 presentation.
So the next report is the map overlay report. And I mean, this looks like a very basic report, but it really tells you some interesting information. You know, Bob's business is located in Houston, so you would expect to see a lot of activity centered around the Houston area. But what this does tell us is that Dallas is also getting a lot of traffic. So maybe Bob wants to take a look at his marketing efforts and kind of reallocate some of his advertising spend to, focus on the Dallas area.
Yeah, and what's good about this report too is that it's not just at the state level. You can do it on the continent level if you're targeting Antarctica for some reason, or Europe, Asia, whatever it is. You can target down to the basic city level, the region, the continent, whatever you're looking for, you can see.
So next is the top content report. What are people looking at when they get to your site? If a lot of people are hitting the homepage, which you would expect. But here Bob is seeing that his work section is actually generating the